Hi everyone, it's Sampar here. Just to let you know, we're just going to give it a couple of more minutes, waiting for a few more people to join, and then we'll kick off. Hi everyone, my name's Sampar. I'm with my colleague Nick Osborne, part of our consultancy team. Structure for today's webinar, we're going to run through a live demonstration for you of Skype for Business, primarily focused on the advanced voice and enterprise collaboration elements. We're then going to run through a live demo of Zylinc, which is our recommended operator console platform. And finally, we're then going to run through UC Analytics. So I'm then going to cover off a few case studies at the end of the session and then wrap up. We're going to wrap up with a Q&A. So please do ask any questions if you want at the end of the session, and we'll obviously do our best to answer your questions. But we're going to kick straight into it, and I'll hand over to Nick Osborne for the live demonstration.
Hi guys, guys and girls, thanks very much for joining our session today. So as Sam gave us a quick sort of run through of the agenda there, so from the sort of demonstration point of view, the first thing I wanted to go through was a demonstration of some of the telephony functionality within the Skype for Business client. So most people, or pretty much most people on the call, would have used Lync or a similar sort of application, Lync, Skype for Business, Office Communication Server at some point. So I'm sure you'd be quite familiar with the idea of things like presence, instant messaging, and that kind of stuff. So the bits I really wanted to focus on today, and the kind of more interesting part, is around the telephony bit, which is something that we're now seeing probably the last year and a half or so is really starting to be taken seriously with Lync or Skype for Business, and people are going full on with deploying it as their voice solution. What I'll do is I've got a few different VMs running that we'll switch between when I run through some of the functionality. So I'm just going to bring up my first machine for the demo. So give me 2 seconds. So all this session is running on Skype for Business. So the whole sort of webinar we're doing today is using that. So it's kind of like we are using the product to its kind of fullest, really. So what you can see here is just a VM in the background. I'll just hide some other bits, and here is the Skype for Business client on the VM. So if you haven't seen the client before, if you have used Lync before, then this will look reasonably familiar. You've got your normal kind of presence and availability up the top here. You'll have your picture if it's in the directory. You've got your, as I said, your status, which you can set, or it will be set automatically from a number of different sources. So your status will be set maybe from your calendar status. If you're busy and in a meeting, it'll set it automatically to busy. If you lock your PC, you'll show as away. So status is set there automatically within the client. Moving further down, I've got my contact list here, which is just a couple for this demo account, but I've got a search box here. So If I want to search and look for somebody in the directory, I'll search for Sam. I can see there that Sam's away, or I'll search for another colleague, Aaron, and it brings back the results straight away from the directory and shows their availability. So that's all kind of normal stuff around instant messaging, presence, availability, that kind of thing. But if I want to maybe start to use this as a phone as well, then all I have to do is type the number of the person I want to call into the client and hit return to make the call. So that's just calling my work mobile, and that's now making a normal phone call via the Skype for Business client. So as well as the other bits there, it is really a soft phone and a sort of full sort of telephony application. So really quick and easy to make a call there just by typing a number, or if I've got somebody in my contact list, I can hover over, click and click to call on their mobile number or other numbers that are available for them. So that's sort of an outbound call. It gets added into my call history as well. So within my Skype for Business client, I've got a history of all calls, missed, etc. This would also list, it's not just telephone calls, it will list instant messages, web conferences, all the communication you make within the Skype for Business client would appear in this list. So you've got a handy little call history there. Moving on a little bit further, I've got sort of my more traditional telephony functions here. So say you call into a number that requires you to press 1 for option 1, press 2 for sales or whatever. You've got your keypad here if you need to press those options on a call. But this telephony tab here also allows you to manage your voicemail. So along the bottom here you can see I've got one voicemail, and so from here I can play it within the client, and that'll play back the voicemail to me. So that would be playing now through my speakers or through my headset, so I can listen to and manage my voicemails from here. Or if I was to delete it from here, it would obviously be deleted, and any sort of new voicemail indicator would be deleted. So behind that voicemail functionality is Microsoft Exchange. So if I flick back to my Outlook client, you'll see here I've got a voicemail, and there's a little sort of phone picture to let me know it is a voicemail. So that ties in with the Lync client. So you kind of have this idea of unified messaging where you receive a voicemail on your phone, which is Lync or Skype for Business. It will appear in your Outlook inbox as well. But if you then delete it from Outlook or vice versa from the client, then after a minute or so that'll disappear from my client. So just flick on to a couple of other tabs in here. So if you have, say, scheduled Skype meetings or any other meetings, they appear in your Skype for Business client as well along here. So it's kind of this one place for collaboration and communication, whether it's starting an IM from your contact list by just clicking send IM, whether it's starting a phone call, or whether it's even starting a video call straight away from the client. It's all kind of driven from the Skype for Business client. So yeah, briefly there, simple telephony functions, all the sort of things you'd expect out of a basic telephone system. Inbound calling as well. I'm just going to send a call into my client here, and you'll see a pop-up on the right hand side in a second. We'll do so yeah, we'll see an incoming call coming in, and from that incoming call prompt I can do a few things with that. So I can either click on it to answer the call, or I could click to deflect it as well. So I've just clicked on it, and that allowed me to answer the call, and there I can click the red button to hang up, or if I just call in again. So I'm just going to send in another call. So see the second call coming in a second. And so down here I can choose to do things to that incoming call. So maybe I want to send it straight to voicemail, which I can do there. So that's deflected the call off to voicemail. On my my phone here, I'm just going. So I'm just going to leave myself a test voicemail and then hang up, and then in a few seconds we should see our voicemail pop in here in a minute or so. But yeah, so again, what I'm trying to highlight is really nice integrated, easy telephony features just from the kind of familiar Skype for Business or Lync interface that people should be used to. So a couple of other sort of telephony features to look at here on the client is around call forwarding. So you might have some scenarios where maybe somebody wants to ring both their link client and their mobile number at the same time. So I can choose to simultaneously ring, enter any number in there. It could be my mobile, it could be another DDI that I also want to ring, but I can have it ring both my link client or my Skype client and my mobile at the same time. I could also choose to forward all my calls to somewhere. So say I'm busy, I want to not receive any calls, I can send all my calls to voicemail, or again I could have all my calls forwarding to my mobile straight away. We can get a bit more in depth on that as well. So say I want to set up a team of people to receive my calls after a set amount of time. I can use the simultaneously ring option, and I can go and create something called a team call group. So this is a bit like a sort of a personal hunt group or a personal ring group. So I can say simultaneously ring my team of people. So let's choose Craig here. And then maybe I want to do that after 10 seconds. So when I receive a call, it will ring on my link client for 10 seconds. Then after that, it will forward on to my team call group members. So they'll receive a pop-up saying, you received a call or you're receiving a team call for Nick Osborne. So they're aware the call was originally destined for me. And then they can handle it if they want to. But this is quite nice because it's a user-driven feature, so you can give users a bit more flexibility in how they configure some of their sort of basic telephony functions. That said, if you also want to control it centrally, that's fine. The team call function and the other sort of call forwarding functions can all be managed centrally via PowerShell on the Link server or the Skype for Business servers. So you can give users access to this, but also if you want to set it centrally, you can do that as well. So going back to our interface here and the way I've been making and receiving calls, as I said, I've been using it as a soft phone, and often that sort of approach doesn't always sit particularly, sometimes doesn't sit particularly well with end users. And so one example of one of our deployments, we worked with a customer who had an existing IP PBX, and they wanted to keep using handsets with their Skype for Business or Link deployment. So we worked with them to ensure they could carry on using these handsets with the deployment, because their users were very adamant that they must have handsets. They didn't want to move to headsets. Some people feel they're moving to a contact center environment. They don't like it. But they're adamant about keeping these handsets. So we ensured we could work with them on that solution. So we deployed Link at the time, which we're now upgrading to Skype for Business using these existing handsets. And within less than a year, the number of handsets they used had probably reduced by 2/3. And that wasn't by them trying to push users to use headsets. It was by users seeing that a small amount of people used headsets and could see that actually their life was a bit easier. They weren't having to cradle a handset under their ear. They could control it all easily from the client on their PC. So the users decided themselves that they wanted to go down that headset route. But it's a good example there of sometimes or often early engagement with your users around how they will use the new system is very important, because it allows you to get their buy-in at that point by helping them understand what might be easier for them by using things like a headset. Also from the sort of technology and cost point of view, headsets are significantly cheaper than handsets. So if you can direct users down that route or sort of persuade them that that's the way forward, then it works for everyone all round. I mean, one way we find to do that as well is we often work with our customers to set up a kind of a demo area within their office, so users can come into that demo area and they can have hands-on with the different sort of tools, so hands-on with headsets and hands-on with handsets, so they can get a feel of what the solution might be like, and then again you can help them make the right sort of decision that's also good for IT as well. Yeah, so that was sort of the very quick run through of the Skype for Business client and some of the telephony functionality on it. The next kind of thing I wanted to touch on was around something called response groups. So I'm just going to flick back to our slides here for a second and show you. So the response groups functionality within Lync or Skype for Business is the ACD function, really. So that stands for automated call distribution, and it's another traditional PBX feature that is sort of a standard feature on a lot of different phone systems, and what it allows you to do is create a basic contact center solution, whether that's for maybe a help desk function, or maybe even just your reception. Maybe you've got a couple of receptionists, but it allows you to do a very basic contact center functionality within Lync to give you some simple things like queuing calls in, passing calls out to end Lync users to handle the calls, having announcements in the queues and opening hours, maybe music on hold and that kind of stuff. So it's a feature, as I said, within Lync. It's better probably for me to talk about the main points of it than trying to show you, because actually it doesn't really look any different. All the Lync user sees is they're receiving another incoming call for a response group, but the same underlying Lync telephony functionality or Skype telephony functionality is there. But it's quite nice because it is a free feature within Skype for Business. It's something that can be configured via the admin side on the server, and as I said, it works well for small sort of contact center functions like maybe a IT help desk. It's lacking in a number of areas which are around the reporting side of it. When you look at, if you have a sort of a larger contact center requirement, maybe you want historical reporting, you want to look at things like workforce management and that kind of stuff. Response groups is not that. It's just the basic freebie that comes with Lync or Skype, but it is a nice feature that you've got there, and it's definitely sort of worth thinking about when you want to look at internal sort of help desk systems. One other point on it, it doesn't have an enterprise-ready operator console, which is one of the reasons why we're going to talk about Zylinc later in the session. So the response groups is really tailored for simple local volumes within the environment. But that said, it's a very nice, easy, free feature to use. So yeah, moving on from the response groups, and actually, if anybody's got any questions on this, we'll be enabling IM later in the meeting, so you can start chucking in questions, and we can hopefully answer any of those queries. But yeah, so moving on from response groups, the third part that I wanted to cover off before we start looking at the Zylinc and the UC Analytics demo is around conferencing. So everyone today has joined this session via Skype for Business as the conferencing solution, and what I wanted to show you was so you've all kind of got the participant views at the moment of the session. So you've probably joined through a browser, or if you have Lync, you've joined through your Lync client. You can probably see the presentation running in the background, and you saw my desktop when I was sharing earlier as the participant view. But what I wanted to show you was what this looks like from the client side, and how it's scheduled and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to flick you back to one of my my VMs. So we're back on the same VM here where we were looking at our sort of telephony demo stuff. But in the background, I've got Outlook running there. So say I want to schedule a new web conference. Just go to my Outlook calendar, click on New Skype Meeting, and there we go. That's brought up my new Skype meeting ready to go, and then I just send that to some people. So yeah, send that to some people, and that's pretty much it. Skype meeting. So yeah, that's got everything the people need to join into this meeting. So it's got the URL here. If you click that, like you did on our meeting out to you today, it probably joined you in through a web browser, or if you had Lync or Skype, it joined you in through the client. If you don't have access to a browser, say you're out on the road or you just have your mobile, you can call in via the dial-in number, and then you just enter the PIN and you're joined into the meeting. If you have the link or the Skype for Business client running on your mobile device, then you can still join as an anonymous participant on the mobile, and you can even view content being presented via the mobile device. So obviously the sort of stuff we're looking at here wouldn't be that great via a tiny little mobile screen, but if you've got an iPad or something, then you can still view a sort of a presentation sort of view of the session. So yeah, what I wanted to show here was how easy that was to start a new meeting. I literally went to my calendar and clicked new online meeting, and it's ready to go, and I can send this out to the participants. If I want to control who can do what in the meeting a little bit more, I've got some stuff around here on meeting options. So I can do things like make people wait in the lobby before the meeting starts. I can announce when people arrive or not. I can choose who's a presenter, and I can have some other controls over the meeting on things like disable IM, mute all the attendees, block the attendees video. So if you're doing a more of a broadcast event like we are today, then some of these features can be quite useful to have a bit more control over the session. But by default, the session is much more sort of accessible, and people can share content and collaborate quite easily. So you've got quite nice sort of level of control over the meeting, and you can give the users the option to then customize it a bit more based on their requirements. Yeah, so hopefully that sort of shows that setting up meetings is nice and easy within Skype for Business. Another sort of customer example here that's quite interesting is one organisation we work with. They're a heavy WebEx user, and they're spending about 80k a year on WebEx. And so we helped them, or we deployed Lync for them, and on-premises deployment, integrated with their call manager to give them connectivity to the PSTN, so they could have the dial-in sort of functionality of it. But at a fraction of that 80k a year, they then had a fully fledged web conferencing solution that enabled them to have massive cost savings based on what they were sort of spending previously. So and for them in particular, they leveraged some of their existing Microsoft licensing agreements. So some of the licenses required for this they already had as part of their agreement, and depending on the licensing model you use, you may already have that. So if you're using things like Office 365, the E3 plan gives you everything you need to run, pretty much everything you need to run Lync on premises for full web conferencing. If you have the enterprise an enterprise agreement or an enterprise subscription for your Microsoft licensing where you pay annually and have a 3-year term, then often that includes at least the Lync standard CAL, and that's with the core CAL suite, or if you've got the enterprise CAL suite, it includes again everything you need for web conferencing. So there's plenty of options there to kind of get you down the road of using Lync meetings and being licensed for it. And Microsoft's been quite flexible on how you use that licensing model as well. So, for example, if you have the enterprise agreement, or if you use Office 365, there's also options for you to allow a provider like ourselves to host that for you as a hosted solution, but still make use of that money you've spent already on those licenses. Even though you're licensed on premises, we can host it for you as a hosted solution as well. So collaboration sort of, or conferencing functionality there. So moving on from that, the last couple of bits I wanted to talk about before passing back to Sam was a couple of the value add products we use with Lync. So I'm just going to flick back to our presentation here. So while I'm sort of doing this, you probably saw my desktop there, and you would have seen that I was just flicking between the content that I have available. So again, this is all standard sort of Skype for Business functionality that you would have, your presenters would have when they're using this as their meeting or conferencing sort of solution. So yeah, from the from the demo sort of point of view, I'm going to flick over and show you some live demo of Zylinc and a live demo of UC Analytics. So Zylinc is our chosen contact center and operator console product. So the reason why we have a product to meet those requirements, and cause earlier I mentioned around kind of you've got this response group function in Link, and okay, yeah, it's there as an option to give you some basic contact center functionality, but Zylinc really comes into its own when you want a much richer contact center experience. So or reception console experience. So say you have a receptionist maybe that handles a large number of calls, or if you have a contact center environment that needs things like screen pops, needs to have in-queue announcements, needs to have sort of more advanced call routing and handling, then Zylinc is great for that. So the view we've got here is the attendant console view of Zylinc at the moment, and that's kind of the receptionist or operator console kind of view. So along the top here I've got my sort of call handling buttons. You notice under there it's kind of got a key sequence that's basically just there to remind me which buttons I need to press, but we can hide that if the receptionist is already sort of quite happy with it and maybe has some labels along the top of the keyboard or something, but it's just there to remind me which keys I need to press today. But so you've got your basic call control buttons along the top there. Up here we've got our calls in queue. So in a minute when I send a few calls in, you'll see calls queuing up and the waiting timer going up and changing color and stuff based on the kind of performance requirements around that queue. Over on the right I've got info on what queues I'm signed into, and then in the center here we've got the call delivery section. So when a call comes in, if it's being delivered to me, it'll appear in the center of the window there. On the right, I've got information about what I've done with my calls. So if I transferred them off, then they appear there. And then down on the bottom section, we've got the directory. So I'll come back to the directory in a second, but I'm just going to send a call into the client. So you can see we've got an incoming call here. It shows up in the middle section because it's been delivered to me. There where it says reception, that's how long it was waiting in queue before the call was passed to me. And if I click history over here, I can see a bit of information about what's been happening, how many times I've received this call today, and that kind of stuff. So I could either click on answer, or I could hit return on my keyboard, and that would answer the call. So now I'm on the call and dealing with that person. And so if I wanted to transfer them off, if I knew the extension of the number I wanted to transfer them to, I can just dial that on the keypad, and then I can just hit return, and that will transfer the call off to the other person. The idea of that is it's quite nice and easy to just pass the call off to other people. Quite easy. So the call comes in, and the receptionist answers it with maybe a return, types the extension number of the person they want to call, hits return again, and the call's dealt with. Useful sort of and quick functionality there, especially if the receptionist is used to handling a lot of calls. So I tried to transfer that call off, but I didn't answer it, or my user I wanted to transfer it on didn't answer it. So quite rightly, the call gets bounced back to me to deal with. So it tells me that the transfer failed because there was no answer. And now I've got the call waiting, and it's ringing on me. So if I hit return again to answer the call, then I'm now dealing with that call again. So then I could try and transfer it off to someone else again, or maybe the callers only wants to speak to that person, so they're going to hang up and call back later. So the caller will hang up, and it's gone from my session. So now I'm ready to take another call. So yes, a quick sort of call handling functionality there. When I received that call, I handled it by dialing an extension number to pass it on to, but maybe I don't know everyone's extension number, so maybe I want to search the directory instead. So I'll have another call coming in. I'll answer the call, So now call's in progress, I'm talking to the person, and so say I want to search the directory to pass the call on to someone else. So if I type on the keyboard, it automatically uses the directory search box on the left and brings back my results. So from here I can choose the number I want to pass the call on to. What's quite a neat feature we can see here is this has got calendar integration. So for anybody in your directory that's got an Exchange mailbox, their calendar information can be brought into the attendant console to allow that receptionist to make a better decision about what to do about that call. So person's called in, they want to speak to Nick Osborne, she searches for me and then looks over on the right, see the calendar and goes, oh actually he's in Koris webinar today. Maybe do you want me to try and pass the call over to his voice or over to his mobile, because he might be able to handle that, or maybe pass it over to voicemail. So I'm going to highlight the mobile number there, and then I'm going to hit return to transfer the call off to the mobile, and that call has now disappeared out of my console. We can see over here it's ringing on the mobile. I'll answer that call in a minute, and then we should see the call has disappeared because it's now been answered on my mobile, and so that you've got through to that person. I suppose the important thing here is that the call came in, I searched for somebody in the directory, and then I made a conscious decision about how to deal with that call, instead of but based on the information available to me, instead of me just trying to forward it onto the extension, waiting for it to ring, no one answering, trying the mobile, etc., not getting through. I've straight away got some really useful information over here on that person's availability. So that calendar integration is quite a neat feature, I think, when you're using the attendant console. So another feature on this is the sort of information on call queuing and performance. So I'm just going to make a couple of calls into our contact center at the moment, and show you the calls queuing up. So the first call that came in was delivered straight to me as the first agent that's available. The second call that comes in is now queuing up. So if there was more than one agent available, that call would be delivered to another available agent, but there's only me as the side desk administrator available at the moment. So we can see we've got the call sort of queuing up here and waiting for somebody to answer it. And you see on the left, the waiting time is starting to change color based on the kind of the SLAs that are configured on that call. So the receptionist may know, or that helps the receptionist to be aware of sort of SLAs that might be kind of important to them within the business. So if I answer this call, I can speak to that person, but actually maybe I need to put them on hold, and then I can double click on here to answer I can hold this call, and it'll allow me to answer the remaining call and bring it back into the session. So you've got options there around sort of handling calls in a multiple in a more busy environment. So yeah, call handling is quite nice and easy around there within Zylinc, and I think the really powerful bits are this directory down here where you've kind of got your calendar integration. You can also have a kind of a fuzzy search within the directory. So if I search for sales, I get back everyone in sales, for example, and I can modify my directory search information here to kind of choose what I bring in for sales. So I can even have it search people's calendar for a keyword, which may help me find someone. So a call might come in, and the caller says, "Oh, I need to speak to Joe." And they're like, okay, well, what's the surname? Don't know, but I know he's in a meeting with supplier XYZ. So I could search in here for the name of the supplier, and that would then bring back the relevant people and their calendar entry. So then you could know to pass that call onto that person. So yeah, Zylinc, as I said, it's a great attendant console solution because of the fact we've got a much richer experience here and the ability to handle multiple calls quickly and sort of efficiently. It also can be used as a contact center solution, and the kind of view we're having here is would be a bit more cut down when we're looking at it as the contact center solution, because I wouldn't need to know about things like people's calendars and stuff like that. I would need to know about things like wait time, what agents are available, and handling time and that kind of stuff. So as I said, yeah, operates as a contact center solution as well. And behind it, we can have things like queuing announcements, place announcements in queues, things like callbacks as well, within the sort of contact center call flow functionality. We can have things like routing to different numbers out of hours, maybe a contact center routes to another contact center outside of normal working hours for overflow, and that kind of stuff. So quite a lot of functionality there. And then behind it as well, we've got rich reporting. Yeah, that was Zylinc, and I guess the key things I wanted to cover off there was particularly around the receptionist part, and where we've deployed that recently is we have a customer that has very high call volumes coming into reception, in excess of sort of 600 calls a day are being handled by one or two receptionists, and for them it's really important that they answer the call and quickly deal with it. So they like the fact that they can use the keys to answer the call. They can then just type on the numeric keypad to because they actually know a lot of the extension numbers, so they can just type the extension number and then they can just hit return to pass the call off, and that will then send the call off to its destination. So all those features are kind of important when you've got a sort of a high volume kind of reception environment. So moving on from the Zylinc attendant console. The last part of the demo session I wanted to show you today was UC Analytics. So UC Analytics is our kind of reporting and monitoring solution for Link, and it's an add-on really that gives you much better insight into what's happening within your Link environment. So I've got my dashboard up here. I probably just need to log back into it. Let me just check. So yeah, UC Analytics does a number of things. It will act as your call logger. So if you want visibility of who's calling who, when, for how long, and what it costs the organisation, and then even kind of reporting to build that onto different departments, it's great for that. So it's your call logger. It's also kind of your insight into how your Link environment or your Skype for Business environment is performing. So the view I'm going to sort of run through with you first is a kind of what I think is probably maybe an IT view of the Link environment. So I've got some real-time counters up here around call quality on the left. In the middle I've got a mean opinion score, which is kind of like an industry standard of call quality. Over on the right, I've got some information about the different types of clients I've got signed in at the moment. Down on the bottom left, and this is one I really like, this is a summary of the gateways that calls are passing in and out of in your Link environment. And one of the nice things about Link or Skype is that you've got, because it's purely IP, excuse me, because it's purely IP, you've got much more flexibility on how you route calls. And also you can have some great options around failover with how you're routing calls, which is nice because it helps you to have a more highly available telephony solution. But for peace of mind, you might want to know or be able to easily see where your calls are genuinely routing out of, to make sure that, okay, they are normally always routing out of my SIP trunks. They're not routing out of my local ISDN failover or something like that. So this gateway summary here is cool, I think, because it shows you the gateways that the calls are routing out of within your environment. And you could name the gateways to be something a bit that is meaningful to you. Over on the right as well, we've got a little graph here just showing different types of calls and the different modalities being used by those calls, so audio, video, and IM, and just giving us an idea of what people are doing throughout the day and sort of the level of calls and stuff. But it's a real-time dashboard, and it can be left up on a screen and it will refresh automatically, just like that one did in the top left. So that's our kind of IT view. behind this view, we've got some really nice features around health monitoring. So if anybody has looked at some of the key health indicators within Lync or Skype for Business, this uses those as its source for the kind of performance information. So I'm looking at a front end server here. I've got an idea of processor usage throughout the day. I've got idea of memory usage, IOPS, and then I can start drilling into kind of some of the real performance counters on Lync, and say everything's looking pretty healthy at the moment. Things aren't being dropped. I'm not getting things timing out. But this is really good because it's given you straight away a really in-depth view of the performance of your Lync environment or Skype environment in sort of near real time. And a feature that's also coming in this is the ability to then alarm on thresholds being hit within these reports. So with Lync kind of being a product that is relatively new in the things it's using around people's experience of Microsoft products. So with Microsoft, we're used to things like SharePoint, Exchange, and that kind of stuff. Sometimes we're not so used to the idea of voice passing through Microsoft products. So if you have concerns and you want to have good visibility of your Lync or Skype environment, and this is great because it gives you that kind of confidence that things are working okay, kind of thing. So other sort of functions here, I can look at the mediation performance to see sort of failed calls because of a gateway being down, calls rejected due to load and that kind of stuff. So really nice new feature here in the health monitor part of UC Analytics. I've also got a couple of my SQL servers on here because if I want to get an idea of SQL performance, then I've got that in here because SQL is critical to Lync depending on your topology. So it's important that you kind of have visibility of your SQL performance as well. So back to our dashboard. But so our first view we looked at here with UC Analytics, as I said, was kind of the IT view of it. The other layouts I just look at is a kind of a contact center view. So going back right earlier when I talked about response groups and some of those basic functions within Lync, this can give you a slightly nicer kind of dashboard view of Lync and the response groups and what's happening around availability and calls in queue and stuff like that. Which just it's just a sort of, if you're just maybe using it for your IT department and you want to get an idea of calls being made and received, then it's good for that. If I look down at the bottom of this view here, maybe you were using Lync or Skype as your phone system and you've got a sales department and you want to get an idea of the outbound calls that the sales department are making, then down here one of the little dashboards is showing us totals of outbound calls. So this could almost be used as a sort of a big sort of leaderboard that you could have up on a wall, and it could show. So I'm just showing you how I can sort of change around the view pretty easily. But so we could have our outbound dials call list on a board in the sales department, and they can see who's making the most calls, and you can have a bit of sort of competition there between people. So we looked at IT sort of views, kind of more telephony kind of views, and then the health monitor part of UC Analytics. Behind this as well, we can set alarms based on different thresholds. So things like maybe if we see a call that is has cost over £5 so far, then we can send an email alert to someone to say there's a high value call or high cost call. Need to check this out from a kind of a sort of a tariff alerting point of view as well. And a number of these dashboards can be popped out in separate windows too. But so this is, I think, UC Analytics is a really nice add-on to Lync to give you much deeper visibility into it over and above the standard sort of Lync monitoring reports. And we find most of our deployments do use UC Analytics because they give you those critical things like call logging and the detailed analysis stuff as well. So I think that was my my last point around, or my last thing to cover off in demoing. So I'll just I'll hand back over to Sam in a second to talk about some of our case studies.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Nick. So yeah, I'm just going to cover off a couple of relevant case studies. The first one is Pernod Ricard. So this included Skype for Business, but also cover off other things that Koris do. So they were replacing their via PBX. They were also relocating their head office, and so we basically provided everything from the core cabling infrastructure right through to the Skype for Business infrastructure as well. So it was effectively to enable remote working for the users. We also put in the core infrastructure underlying it. So as a business, Koris, ideally we would be providing everything from that a client would need for their IT and telecoms, but as Nick mentioned, sometimes it's purely just for the Skype for Business element, and that may be just a consultancy, it may be design installation, or it actually may be a full-on managed service and support infrastructure service. The interesting thing that we're seeing in the market more and more is that a lot of our customers have seen the value in Skype, they're using the IM and presence, but now they're asking the question, how do I actually move to use Skype in the more advanced stuff, which is obviously why we've covered off what we've covered off today in the webinar. And to do that, obviously there's a lot of specifics within the voice arena that need to be considered. So it's not just data anymore. There's the considerations around the user experience, specifically around how a customer contacts that business. So when they're contacting the organization, how does that operator deal with their call effectively first time? And that's really where Zylinc comes into its own, because although in the smaller environments you can use the free of charge Microsoft Link or Skype application, as we talked about, what we're seeing more and more is that if you're replacing a PBX, operators will expect to be using a professional operator console, and if they can't handle client calls coming into their business, it becomes frustrating for them. So a great example with that was Grapp Brothers, which was one of the clients that was mentioned earlier. The operator's taking 600 calls a day. It's a high pressure environment that she has to be able to take a call and release it quickly and effectively, but also professionally. So Zylinc there has been one of the fundamental factors of why the decision was made to go for Skype for Business, but also working with Koris. It was our experience and understanding in the voice arena and our skill set with Zylinc. Another example you can see up on the slide is Epson, and that was more, as opposed to the enterprise voice functionality, that was for conferencing requirements. So they have a huge employee workforce spread across UK and Europe, spending a fortune on conferencing, and this was to enable people to work remotely and increase the amount of remote working, but try and contain the costs of that happening. And so for those guys, the initial step was to purely put it in for conferencing. Step 2 is then to look at replacing their PBX environment. And as another example, Investec Asset Management. This was an interesting one for us for the fact that initially we purely engaged on a consultancy basis. So although we'd love to sell everything within our portfolio, Investec simply needed some high-end consultancy skills around Microsoft Link 2013. They'd investigated a number of different organizations, and when they spoke to our guys, the initial piece of work was a few days on site to troubleshoot their existing environment, make sure it was ready to be rolled out to the wider community, and also put in a platform that could be expanded on in the future to replace their existing Cisco PBX infrastructure. And that's exactly what we've done. So over the last few years, we've built a relationship with those guys, and we've taken them from a traditional PBX environment, introduced the collaboration tools, and now we're working in partnership with them to look at sort of how we then develop that to an enterprise voice side. So far we've put some outlying sites in for them for enterprise voice, Hong Kong, and the next step is to look at that on a global basis. So in terms of Koris, obviously, hopefully that some of the applications that you've seen today have been of interest, and I think that the natural question then is, where do Koris fit, and obviously what can we provide, and how do we help out the clients that we work with? On the first level, it's around consultancies. So in some cases, partners or customers that we're working with already have a partner that they're engaged with, but they need a technical authority or someone that understands the voice environment, whether it be Ops Console, Contact Center, Help Desk, or the core Skype for Business Link environment. And so initially, we often provide upfront consultancy to look at the technical design, look at the requirements of the business, and more we're spending time with customers to profile their users. So to look at actually what the business is trying to achieve, how what challenges they're coming up against and what the initiatives are within that business, whether it be to increase the amount of remote workers they have, whether it's to reduce the amount of office footprint that they've got. And to do that, obviously we'll go and spend time with the users, the management, leadership, understand what the key criteria for the projects are, and then help them build a reliable business case effectively. The second element or core fabric within our business is professional services. So the core of what we do is to help companies design, implement, and then support Skype for Business and other technology services. And from a support perspective, we focus around managed infrastructure services. So that's all the underlying technology to enable things like Skype to happen, whether it be LAN, wide area networks, MPLS networks, and telco services. Increasingly, it's a natural step. A lot of our clients have moved from traditional ISDN environments and have justified the investment in Skype and remote working through delivering the services over SIP, with SIP breakout. And as a business, we have our own dual data center set up, so we provide on-premise services for clients that want the equipment and infrastructure on site. But equally, we more and more we're seeing clients wanting to host the infrastructure either in their own data centers or the Koris data centers. And for that, we're able to provide the complete suite of Skype for Business and the applications we've talked about today. One thing it's important to understand is the hosting solutions that we provide are private hosted, so it's not a multi-tenant environment. It's built dedicated for each client in a secure environment. And the other thing for me is what we're seeing from the clients we're both speaking to and working with is that although some people would love to move to Skype day one and replace everything, examples like Perno, where there was a relocation in the midst, so they were able to justify that investment. Other customers may have already have an investment in Cisco, or they may have an investment in Mitel or Avaya or another. So what we're able to do with those guys is build a plan, a phase plan to say, okay, day one, where can we help you with Skype? Is it just the collaboration element tied into your existing PBX? And then when those contracts and the assets have been run down, we're then able to look at a longer term strategy to replace the traditional PBXs. And the final thing for me, you'll notice that there's a BT logo there. BT is the foundation of our MPLS offering. So from our data centers, we've built our own backbone network, and we provide MPLS services as well as the other BT data connectivity portfolio. And as a partner, we most recently have been awarded the BT Partner of the Year 2015. So got a very strong heritage in the underlying infrastructure, but equally it's around either Skype for Business or Mitel, and increasingly, obviously, Skype is gaining the momentum. So to wrap things up, we've obviously seen a couple of people have had issues connecting into the session. So what we're going to do is we'll be able to send you a recording out of today's webinar for you to look at later on. But what we'd like to do now is, if anyone's got any questions, if you want to fire them across on IM, we'll sort of run through them and hopefully answer them today. Equally, if you've got anything that's business sensitive for your organisation and obviously you don't want to share it on an open forum, what we'll do is we'll send all of you our contact details. If you want to email us afterwards, then we'll be happy to take them offline. And equally, some of you may be familiar with Skype, or some of you may not. So if you want us to set up more one-to-one sessions to go through the basics of Skype, I know we've jumped through to some quite advanced features today, then again, just let us know and we'd be happy to set up a one-on-one demo where we can take you through from start to finish. And equally, we'd be keen to go through the applications in more detail with you as well. So does anyone have any questions? And if so, do you want to IM them now?
Hi Ian, it's Nick here. So yeah, the question was, if hosted, would it be using licenses on our MS Enterprise agreement? Yes, it would. So depending on if you've got the Core Cal suite as part of your enterprise agreement, that gives you the Skype for Business standard Cal, which gives you the IM and presence and PC to PC audio and video functionality. So we could use something called SPLA licensing, which is service provider licensing agreement with Microsoft, which allows us to take that license and port it into our our hosted environment for you. So as Sam mentioned, we spin up a dedicated instance of Skype for Business within our data centers for you, and then we would use that fact you've got your CoreCal license to license up users on the hosted environment. Using the SPLA licensing has a few advantages because it means we don't have to worry about Skype for Business server licenses either, so it helps us sort of keep costs lower. So the way it works is Microsoft charge a small uplift to allow you to use that CoreCal in a service provider's environment, and then say you wanted to take it further and say you had either the CoreCal suite, so it gives you IM presence, or maybe if you had the Enterprise Cal suite, which gives you IM presence and web conferencing. If you wanted to take either a bit further and maybe add web conferencing to the CoreCal, or maybe add telephony to the Enterprise Cal, or add telephony to CoreCal, we can do that on a simple sort of per user per month uplift cost, only for the users that you want to enable those features for. So for once, Microsoft have actually been quite flexible with their licensing on that. So yeah, plenty of options. And as Sam said, if you want to give us a shout, and we can talk in more detail about it. Cool. Thanks, Ian.
Does anyone else have any questions? I'm assuming maybe there's some sensitive ones that you want to email offline, or I think maybe, if not, have we covered everything within the webinar today? Just one thing, while people may be thinking of questions that are relevant for themselves, the next session that we're looking to do next month will be to take the demonstration of Zylinc a step further. So in terms of today, we've covered off the Ops Console side of things, but the reason why we recommend Zylinc is, A, it's a fantastic Ops Console, and when we've done head-to-head reviews with clients with other consoles that within the portfolio, Zylinc's come out top. That's one example, but it's also the fact that it's integrated with the contact center, and as Nick mentioned, the fact that we can integrate the front of house Ops Console environment with the contact center, and then a third application within Zylinc Suite is a product called Service Center, and that effectively bridges the gap between an operator environment and a contact center environment. So it's where someone may be taking a front end operator call 1 minute, the next minute they may be in another queue taking a call for an internal customer service or technical service or sales query. So there's 3 elements in the suite, and so the next session will focus on, again, Skype for Business, but we'll cover off the Zylinc elements as well. So if anyone does want to join that, again, we'll send out the details after today's session for you, and just let us know, and we'll make sure we provide the details. So I'm not seeing any other questions on the bridge. So if no one's got anything, we'll obviously close today's session off. We will send you anyone that requires it, we'll send you a recording of the call, and we'll also send you our contact details if you do think of anything else, and the info for next month's session. So thanks very much for joining, and hope it's been useful to you, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone. Cheers.